For hundreds of years, people have been drawn to Glendalough. Glendalough from the Irish for the Valley of the Two Lakes. It's rumored that in the 6th century, St. Kevin came to this area and decided to build his monastery here because it's such a peaceful, remote and quiet place to be able to rest and pray. So today I'm taking you for a tour of Glendalough. So come with me, let's explore the monastic city, and then we will fly above the Wicklow Mountains and see the marvelous Valley of the Two Lakes. 20,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, the glaciers melted and formed the two lakes in this V-shaped valley that is now Glendalough. With that, the two lakes were formed, but in the beginning, interesting fact, it was only one lake until all the debris and sediment separated them. And now they're still connected by streams, but now we have the two lakes. Construction of the monastic city started in the 6th century, but most of the buildings we see today date back to the 10th and the 11th centuries, which were later rebuilt and restored in the 19th century. St. Kevin founded the Glendalough Monastery, but lived out his days in a cave now known as St. Kevin's Bed. Unfortunately, today, most of the buildings are just ruins. But you can still see how majestic and how big this city would have been and how impressive to people of those times. In the Middle Ages, this would have been much more than a little village. It was actually a city. The oldest dated grave on the site is from 1697 for Murloch Doyle. There are older graves, but the inscriptions have been lost to time. This is St. Kevin's Church. The two main things you notice when you see it for the first time is that it has its own small round tower built on the roof. And the second thing is that it has a roof. Amazingly, this church was built in the 10th century, but the roof was built using a technique called dry stone. This is the same technique used in other ancient sites, such as Newgrange and Carrickeel. And they predate Glendalough by thousands of years. Inside the church, you will find some gravestones. The extension to the side was built some 100 to 200 years after the church itself. Interesting fact is that a lot of people call this St. Kevin's Kitchen because they believe that the bell tower was actually a chimney to a kitchen. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. No food was ever cooked there. Right next to St. Kevin's Church is St. Kieran's Church. Now there's little more than foundation left of this church because it was only discovered really in the 1870s. It had been covered by a mound of dirt for centuries. St. Kieran himself was a contemporary of St. Kevin, and they were good friends. Very little is known about his church, but apparently Kieran and Kevin were really good friends. And it is said that one day St. Kevin went to Count Offaly to visit Kieran in Clonmacnoise. When he arrived, he discovered that Kieran had died of the yellow plague only a few days before. So during his wake, it is said that St. Kieran briefly came back to life just so he could bid farewell to his friend Kevin. This is the cathedral. It's the largest of Glendalough's 7 churches, and it's one of the largest early Christian churches in Ireland. It was dedicated to Saints Peter and Paul. Unfortunately, by 1214, it was no longer a cathedral, and that was the beginning of the end for it. The oldest part of the cathedral is the nave, dating back somewhere between the 10th and the 11th centuries. The church was expanded in the 12th century when they added the chancel and the sacristy. In the chancel, you will see one medieval gravestone that stands out, and there are other early Christian gravestones here. Interesting, one of these gravestones asks for a prayer for Dermot and McCoy. Right next to the cathedral is St. Kevin's Cross. Now this cross was carved out of a single block of granite, and it stands about 2.5 meters tall. Interestingly, this type of cross combines the circle with the cross, and the circle represents the sun. And this is because the pagans worship the sun and the moon. It is believed that St. Patrick started this to help pagans accept Christianity. If you visit Glendalough, you might as well come make a wish at the cross, because legend has it that if you can wrap your arms around the width of the cross's main body and close the circle by touching your fingertips, your wish will be granted. When you come to Glendalough, the structure that will call your attention first is the round tower. Anywhere you go, you can see this tower from any of the churches in most of the valley. Round towers are structures that are basically unique to Ireland, but they are still a bit mysterious. This originally was a bell tower. It was used to summon the monks to prayer. This tower was built between the years 900 and 1200, and it stands at about 30 meters high. It's basically the original structure here. The only part that had to be replaced was the cap that was struck by lightning in the 19th century. You will notice that the top level has 4 windows, one to each of the compass directions, north, south, east, west. The upper levels only have 1 window each, and the rest of the tower has no windows, and the only other opening is the door. Now, interestingly, the door is at 6.5 meters off the ground. Presumably, they had a wooden ladder. They would climb up into the tower, then pull the ladder in. And this was, in case of attack, they had a place to hide. And not only did the monks hide in here, but rumor has it that they hid treasures in here in case of attack. Maybe relics from the church, maybe St. Kevin's relics were hidden here during attacks for protection. As you walk through the cemetery, you'll come upon the ruins of a small little house. It's odd, it's a weird little house. It's called the Priest House, and this is because in the 18th century there was the custom of bringing the priests here to be prepared for burial. And rumor has it that they even buried some of the priests in the floor of this house. According to local folklore, the clay from the floor of this house was a cure for toothache. All you had to do was get a little bit of the clay, rub it on your jaw, and the pain would be gone. Not a lot is known about this little house. There are some theories that suggest that it might have been built over St. Kevin's grave, and others that say that maybe it housed St. Kevin's relics. Today, nobody really knows what this little structure was used for. About 1 kilometer east of the main campus, you will find this sign along one of the trails. Following it into the woods, you will find a narrow floodplain, and in the middle you will find the Priory of St. Saviour, or St. Saviour's Church. This was founded in the 12th century by Lawrence O'Toole. He was abbot of Glendalough at the time, and later he became Archbishop of Dublin. This is the most recent of the 7 churches built in the valley. It served as a priory for Augustinian monks. The relative isolation of this church is thought to be because of resentment towards the Augustinian monks by the long-established monastic community. This place by the river is very scenic and very quiet, very peaceful. Of all the churches and monuments in the valley, this is probably the least visited one, making it really special in our adventure. I spent over an hour here, and during the whole time, I was alone. An interesting fact is that Dermot MacMurchada, the King of Leinster, who I mentioned in the video about Carrickfergus Castle and others, he was probably involved in the foundation of the monastery. Now, if you head west from the main campus, you will come upon another church. This is St. Mary's Church, or Our Lady's Church. It is one of the earliest churches in the valley, and it dates back to the 10th century. It was built outside the main enclosure, probably because it was exclusively for nuns. Now, it's really hard to get to this church nowadays because there's no direct path to it. You have to go through some farm enclosures and sometimes even face some farm animals to get to it. So not many visitors come here really. As I was exploring St. Mary's Church, I met a local lady who told me she comes here once in a while to visit the Killeen. She lights a candle and she says a prayer, and the idea here is try to unite stillborn children buried there with their mothers in heaven. Now, I had to research what a Killeen really is, and a Killeen is a historical burial ground in Ireland from the early days of Christianity, and it's always located outside of the consecrated churchyard and graveyard. The intention of the Killeen is to bury stillborn children because they hadn't been baptized yet, and so they couldn't be buried in the graveyard itself. It is said that these Killeens were even used for those who could not be buried in the churchyard for other reasons. So mentally disabled people suicides, beggars, executed criminals, and, amazingly enough, even shipwreck victims. The Killiney are secret and clandestine by nature. They're places where the past remains safely hidden. The only records or memories of them are the occasional oral accounts. Otherwise, their stories are lost to time. Now, to find the next church in our adventure, you have to head west. You have to head towards the upper lake. Following the green trail, you will eventually come to a sign that reads Reeford Church. It's well hidden, and it's a clearing in the middle of the woodland. Now, this is one of the earliest churches in the area. It was built around the 1100s, but interestingly, it is on the site of an earlier wood or wattle church, and that was built during St. Kevin's time. The name Reeford derives from the Irish Rig Ferta, and it means the burial place of kings. It is believed that the chiefs of the local O'Toole and O'Byrne clans are buried here. This is a mysterious and somber place. You can feel the history in the air. And in the winter, it's especially somber because no sun shines on this part of the lake's southern shore. For this reason, few people even come here at all. Not much is known about the church aside from the surveys that have been carried out. The seventh and final church in our adventure is Temponaskellig. Now this one is extra special. It wasn't discovered until the late 1800s, and it's located far west in the valley, past Reeford Church, past St. Kevin's Bed. This was the site of St. Kevin's very first settlement. The name means Church of the Rock, and that's very fitting because you can see it was built on a shelf, a rock shelf, on the edge of the lake. It can only be accessed by boat, so it's almost impossible for us to visit. A map made by the Glendalough Heritage describes the steps that came up from a landing on the shore that led up to the church, and then other steps that led up to the platform. Now, in this platform, they found evidence of wattle huts, and they were all connected by paved pathways. So there was a village here. The easiest way for you to view the church is to go up the Miners Road walk and walk about 350 meters to where you will find the sign that reads St. Kevin's Bed. Use your camera lens, binoculars, or something, and you will see on the other side of the river to the west of St. Kevin's Bed, the little church, the remains of what it is, and the settlement. Today, very little remains of this church, but you can see how St. Kevin valued isolation and peace. It seems Glendalough has been a holy place even before Christianity arrived in Ireland in the 4th century. There is evidence of constructions that predate St. Kevin's Monastery. Interestingly, those who lived here at the time of his monastery were called citizens of heaven. It was not only known as a sanctuary, but it was also a place of learning. The monks that lived in the monastery would have written, copied, and illuminated sacred manuscripts. The Book of Glendalough was written here in 1131. The current remains of Glendalough tell only a small part of its history. There is still so much to discover. It is a stunning natural park anyone can enjoy. Walk the trails, grab a bite to eat, have a cup of coffee, all while taking in the hundreds, maybe thousands of years of history right under their feet. When I started this adventure, my intention was to show you all of Glendalough in one single video. However, after spending a week here, I noticed that there's just too much to show. So I'm going to make part 2 of this video. Part 1, we explored the 7 churches of Glendalough, learned a little bit about its history, and saw a little bit of the natural beauty of this national park. In part 2, I'm going to take you on an adventure through the national park, the trails, the wildlife, and fly over the Wicklow Mountains. There's still so much to explore, so don't miss it. Which was your favorite church? Comment below and tell me why. If you've been to Glendalough, tell me about your adventures. I look forward to reading your comments. There's another adventure coming up on your screen right now, so click it to take a look. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.